What's going on? This is Shamus with the Educate to Elevate podcast. I have a special guest, one of my friends for the last 2 or 3 years. This guy is a straight up guy. We got to hang out last weekend in San Diego. My guy, Jordan Morgan. What's going on, brother?
What's up, brother? Appreciate you for having me, man. I'm excited for this one. This is exciting. This is a lot different than what most people produce.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. So I want to tell everybody, I met you about 2 or 3 years ago, right? We was doing some online stuff. And what I seen in you instantly is one, that you really cared about the community, like rebuilding a community, which a lot of people, they don't really care about the community that they come from. Like you could have been left the community a long time ago, but you're still in the community. So let everybody know exactly, where you're from, what you do, and what you bring to like your community. I know you rebuild in Delaware. You're probably going to rebuild the entire state,
Nah, for sure, man. I appreciate it. So Jordan Morgan from Wilmington, Delaware, started in real estate about a little over 10 years ago. Started doing fix and flips, morphed that into starting a construction company. This was a family business that we all started, and then each of us kind of branched off and did our own thing. So I run it with my 2 brothers and my sister. My next step that we went to from fix and flips, we went to rentals, and we went from rentals to wholesaling. So basically, once you get into wholesaling, you understand it's like, all right, well, I'm buying all these deals from all these other people. I'm paying them all this money. Like, might as well find the deal myself. So got into wholesaling. My other brother got into rental management, started putting behind that to manage our own rentals instead of paying other people to manage it. So basically became an infrastructure vertically integrated that we do everything real estate. So we got our own construction company, rental management company. We have investors that fund all our own deals, raise all our own private capital. So we've raised millions in private capital just to fund all the flips that we got going on. We got about 20 active projects going on right now, 20 units. So we have anywhere from a 4-unit to a single family that we're working on the units. Anything that we do, anything that we deliver is always like quality. Doesn't matter the area, the city it's in, like quality housing is what we're pushing for. Most people go into a certain area and they're like, oh no, you do this type of rehab in this area. Like that's what most investors say. But like we go in there and they're like, well, that's too nice of a thing to put in that area. And it's like, nah, it doesn't matter what area we go in, it's like top of the line. So we're big on giving back to the community, big on helping others kind of succeed, get to where we're at, as well as giving back to all those around us just in the community that we're giving back to, as far as like giving out clothes, helping with different church events, helping with high schools in the area, rebuilding those. I mean, our church Word of Life actually put on a Dream Big project where I ran all the construction, and we had so many vendors come out and help support. So anything we could do to help rebuild a community, we're all about it. So that's little tidbit about what I do.
And what's crazy is like what you just said. When you go into certain areas, they kind of limit, like you said, oh, that counter shouldn't go in there. That fridge should go. They don't like. I can't even like fathom that thought. Like I think we all deserve to see the same things in life. And then I know for me, growing up as a kid, I grew up in the South Bronx. Like we had 36 apartments in the building. Half of them was drug spots. And I got in trouble. I got kicked out of the 7th grade with a firearm. I was packing in the 7th grade. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Got kicked out of 3 schools in 1 month. My sister took me from the Bronx to Spring Valley, New York, where it was structured. Her husband, a house, grass. That changed my life. That changed everything. So what do you think? Was there like a pivotal moment for you where you seen that they just wasn't taking care of the community and you had to stand for that and show them like, this is what needs to be done in this community? Was it like something that triggered that?
Yeah, I think 2017, 2018, we had just took a bunch of hits, but we were like, look, where do we shine at? We shine in affordable housing, and how can we help the community and how can we succeed with people around us and the teams that we have? And we did really high-end work, but it was like, I'll put it to you this way. So you sell a high-end home, $1.3 million, you go to the settlement table. My brother explains this story best. Like you go in there and the people are wearing top hats and they're just like, they're pissed off. They're like, well, we didn't give you this negotiation, whatever. That's a $1.3 million house. But you go into a $150,000, even $120,000 house and they are ecstatic, happy. grateful that you're providing them this opportunity. It's just a different mindset. And that kind of shifted our whole company culture that was like, look, like, I'm not trying to provide houses for the rich. Like our whole family was like, look, like we provide quality housing regardless of the status. Like whether or not it be $100,000 house or $1 million house, it's the same thing. Quality over quantity at the end of the day, right? And that really shifted our mentality to be like, look, we can take the same quality houses that we're putting in $1 million areas and we can put it into other areas like the East Side. East Side is one of the most underdeveloped areas in our city right now. And West Center City is as well, but East Side, we kind of was like, hey, look, let's start here and see what we could do and just kind of like do a test product. And we did a test product on Kirkwood Street and put a product out, hit a comp. Nobody had ever thought that the houses would even hit that number. And then we started buying right around there and setting more comps. So since then, we've set probably another 4 or 5 comps inside of the East Side, West Center City, and also upper parts of like the, they call it the upper Ninth Ward in my area. So like that really shifted our dynamic of, we're not really out here trying to provide these $1 million houses. I mean, obviously income is the goal, but the statement I always make is if you chase income, impact will run from you. But if you chase income, income will run after you. So it's like that type of dynamic is what we were going after. Like straight impact. How can we make impact? Can we provide quality homes to people in the area? And most people are like, oh, well, the margins aren't like that in that area. Like I'm not even touching it. And we jumped out on a limb and God's been providing for us ever since, man. We're rocking. You still get the negativity. People like, oh, you're gentrifying, you're doing this. But it's like they're boarded up houses that have been boarded up for 30 years. And we're coming in and trying to revitalize it. And it's like, well, you can't do that in that neighborhood. Well, I guess somebody got to start and try somewhere. So, you got to grind through it.
What's some obstacles you went through when you first took that approach to like change that? What kind of feedback did you get? What type of obstacles did you have to get around? Was there anything major?
Oh man, yeah, that's a great question because most people wouldn't understand to go that direction. I mean, you got permit issues with the city. Takes 6 months to get a permit approval in that specific side of town. When you go to Newcastle County and you get a permit approval inside of a day or 2 days, but you go into the city in one of the places that needs it the most, and it takes 6 months to get an approval. That's a huge thing. People throwing rocks through the window, houses getting shot at, the lights getting shot at, the windows getting shot through, like having to get the sashes replaced. There's just, you got contractors don't want to work in certain areas. Investors don't want to invest in certain areas. Like, oh, we don't touch that area. Like, there's a lot of stuff you got to fight through. But the power was, as we had our own investors behind us and believed in what we were pushing, and they understand what we were doing. And we're handshake kind of people. Like, if we rock out, even if we take a loss, we always make it right. So it was like we had a good squad around us that we had built up over like probably like 6 to 7 year period before we really started to go into that. Like, let's test it. Let's see if we can give back. Let's see if we can provide a quality house in this area and see what it does. And we just started setting the standard. Like once we set the standard, people were like, yo, we see what you're doing. Like, let's rock out. And then, the city's kind of like following suit. The city's kind of jumping in on the east side as well. But we've been rocking. We've been making moves and doing what we can. But I think the biggest thing is delays with the city, where the city actually holds its own self back, honestly. Like if we could get that permit done in a week or two, we'd be good.
Done, yeah. And it's similar to the same thing that's happening here in Atlanta. You'll go down into the city and you'll see houses that's been boarded up for a decade, 2 decades, right? You can't buy them from nobody because the city either took over them in a tax sale or something, and they're just waiting for people like yourself to take the entire area, bring all the comps up, and then they know for a property that a decade ago they would have only got $5,000 for, now they're going to get $250,000 for. So they hold them,
That's a good point. So we actually buy, it's the land bank in different areas, right? So we buy from the land bank. So the funny thing is when we went to it, now the land bank in our area is really cool. We got an awesome land bank. It's not even the issue with the land bank. The issue is with the city, with the infrastructure, with how they do the permits and L&I and the inspectors and stuff like that. So our land bank was like, basically when we went out, we did one project on our own. Didn't even buy from the land bank. Didn't even approach them. We were like, look, let's set a standard. Let's actually show what we could do before we even go to them. So we set the expectation of what we could deliver before we even went to the land bank. Now, most people are like, oh, I went to the land bank. They shot me down, this and that. It's like, well, have they seen any work that you could do? So when they saw it, they toured 2 of the properties that we had on that street at the time. And they were like, well, why haven't you guys come to us sooner? It was like, we had no proof for you yet. Here's the proof. They've sold, they appraised, and now you can see what we've actually done. So now we can have a conversation and what we could do. So since that conversation, we picked up 3 from the city, and we're working on 3 in a row on the same block on where we set the comps at to really help change that block around. So we've kind of setting our mark in that area, making sure people know what we're doing, and just really giving back. But it's crazy because it's kind of under the radar. Like we don't really even push it like that we're doing a lot of the work on the east side. So
Yeah, that's the true meaning of buying the block back.
yeah, for sure.
That's buying the
Yeah.
block back. So I want
And
to
it's
kind
and,
of
and good point. We're not even like buying it and holding it. We're buying it and pushing it to homeowners to buy in the area, where most people in our area they're specifically buying it. Like, I'm gonna hold that area because the appreciation's going. It's like we're actually trying to create the infrastructure to where communities are being built and people are buying, and the like being prideful in your home ownership, right?
Yeah.
Bringing pride back to home ownership. And most of the time, most people don't have that. So it's like, oh, well, buy it, be a landlord, rent it out, blah, blah, blah. But in that specific area, our main goal is home ownership. That's what we push and that's what we stressing. We have our rentals that we hold in specific areas, but for the most part, that specific center. But yeah, good point.
because I think the foundation of wealth is real estate.
Yeah.
So like, like I talk to homeowners all the time and they're like, oh, I had this property in my family for 60 years. And then I look back and the property is worth $800,000 and they bought it for like $40K. I'm like, that's a seven.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If you buy the right property, you actually can hold it for a decade and break the generational curse. Like I was talking to a guy the other day, he had land. The land was worth like 800 grand, like everything around it is like $2-3 million houses. He was like, man, we paid like 15,000 for this like 20 years ago. I was like, damn, like talk about breaking the curse.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy. All right. So I know you used to play ball. All right. Tell me something about, what I'm saying? Cause we did articles and stuff like that. I read articles on everything. Tell me something about like your basketball. Cause I'm from the Bronx and I think the Bronx, we don't got no jump shot. But we got the point guards that get to the cup and we dish it to the big man. So tell us a little bit about like your basketball career.
Yeah, for sure. Man, it's crazy. So I was always striving to be a basketball player. Like, man, I'm gonna make it. Went to a private high school, didn't really have a lot of exposure. Kind of made my own way. I went to Cecil College was the first college I went to. And at first I was trying to get recruited from the main coach that was there. He actually left and another coach came in. So my exposure just went from he knew who I was to trying to bring me on to now he's not the coach anymore. So you know how that go.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, now I gotta, that was my ticket. And I went and walked on at Cecil. And that was my first experience. And that was, I'm playing with like D1 athletes. Like I'm 18 years old playing with 26, 27, 28-year-olds at a JUCO. I'm like, I'm not fully developed yet. That took my game to the next level. I redshirted that year because I was like, yo, there's no way I'm playing at this. And redshirted that year, I took a lot of time, growth, and energy to build myself as a basketball player, which really built my character up until this point. Is like, it wasn't really about making it to the NBA or anything like that. It was like, whatever I do, I give my all at. Like, whatever job I was at, I gave my all. In basketball, man, I'm going into practice, I'm running suicides, I'm giving my all on everything I'm doing. You got guys going in there just jogging, like, man, here go Jordan again, he running by me. It's like they not really worried about that. But in my mind, I'm like, no, like I'm gonna make the best out of this. This is literally what I'm getting paid for at this point. Like my one college, I went to Del Tech. Man, I'm running suicides like I mean it. I'm making my layups like I'm doing everything I need to do like I meant it. And I think that mentality has taken me to where I'm at today. And regardless of what we do, I make it shine. It don't matter what it is. Like quality is everything to me. It's like how you do everything is how you do anything.
That's exactly. I was just gonna say that right after you was done, because that's the truth. And what happens is like me growing up, I was the same exact way. Like 6 foot, I don't have the height, but I had to make up in defense, getting the ball up the court. That's what I did. I remember my 7th grade year because I got hurt. But my 7th grade year, when I moved from the Bronx to Spring Valley, I asked the basketball coach, I was like, what was your record last year? And he was like, it was like 2 and like 13 or 14. I told him, I said, we're going to change that around. We won district champs that year, right? I was a starting point guard. We won district champs. So me, when I moved from the Bronx to Spring Valley, they actually had organized football. And I'm like, so you mean I can hit people and I don't get in trouble for it? Sign me up. Made the team, I was actually at practice one day and I sacked the quarterback twice. And the third time I went to sack the quarterback, my cleat got like stuck in the grass and I tore everything in my left knee.
Dang.
My coach cried when I came in with the cast on, because back then there was no microscopic surgery. Like put a cast on it. It itches, you stick a hanger in and scratch it. When I walked in, my coach, my basketball coach, he literally cried. He's like, why? Like, because I wanted to go to St. John's. That was my school. I wanted to go to St. John's. And he was already having me work out with the high school kids in the 7th grade. He was like, yo, you're going to be phenomenal. And basketball, when I got that injury, I never recovered mentally. So every time I would turn and I get a tweak, that's it. I'm done. No more. And it was no more basketball. And I remember for about 5 years, 10 years, I would watch people play basketball and I would tear. I would tear because I like, damn, I want to play. I want to play bad. The good thing is I got to live some of that through my son. He played ball. He's not playing. He's 28 now. He's not playing ball anymore. But he got a state championship with Norcross. I used to travel with him, take him to the 5-star camps. I ran the Phenom camp. So I see him out there hustling, and I'm like, that's me. So
it's respect. It's respect. It's enjoyed, right? It's an enjoyed moment. You can pass it down.
Exactly. What's one of your, I would say your biggest failures that you think you learned the most from?
That's a great question. I would say it kind of combines with a lot of different things, right? Our biggest failure was we went from affordable housing to like $1 million houses, like inside of a short jump, because we was excelling fast and we was doing good. But we jumped up so fast and we scaled so fast that at that time, we really learned what cash flow issues were in a business. We learned what, all right, you got 15 projects going on and all of them go over 10 grand. That's 150 G's. All right. Now, what does that look like? I think as a whole, learning like how when you scale a company, what you run into like that, you learn your financial thermostat changes a lot. And I think in the failure is like the losses that we took from high-end homes was really put us to where we at today. Cause now we had to learn, all right, you might be running X amount of projects at the same time, but at the same time, I got a $1,000 credit card that spent $999 on it, but I still can get a full tank of gas. Like you got to learn how to get creative. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody can use different analogies on what works for them, but we had to learn how to stretch a dollar and how to make a dollar work, how to learn how to raise private capital to cover funds, how to be like, all right, look, well, we're not going to borrow X amount of dollars on this project. We got to make sure that we are on this specific project. If it goes over 10 grand, where do we pull the capital from? Stuff like that. Because then if the house doesn't sell and it takes a loss, it's a learning experience. Because it's like, all right, cool. Well, this house is supposed to sell for $1 million and then it sells for 700. That's a $300,000 difference. You know what I mean? So it's like, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, it goes down to the underwriting, this and that. Like, but it actually comes down to you got so many people that underwrite a deal, but then if just something goes south, it takes 2 years to flip it. Like you lose a contractor or whatever. There's so many variables to that. The learning lesson was how to manage money on a large scale, how to manage $100,000 a week payrolls, how to manage like the work-life balance at the same time is trying to be like, look, I'm as soon as money comes in, money goes right back out again. And learning how to manage that. My biggest lesson was just don't always chase money. It's like money's not everything. Like you chasing money, chasing scale, you want to grow this, you want to grow this wholesaling company, grow this fix and flip company. Like money's not everything. It's just a tool. And if you can learn how to leverage the tool, I think if we learn how to leverage it earlier, we wouldn't really had to go through those losses. But the losses are helping me teach other people what I had to go through so they don't have to go through the same thing, which again is why we created the brand, Rich or Worry Free. Like if you just chasing riches, the riches will help you learn quick and you'll fall on your knees and it'll knock you down, but it's all about how you get back up again and what character you build through that. So when the money does come, you understand how to utilize it. You understand it as a tool. It's not like it doesn't define you type of deal. So that's kind of like the biggest lesson that we went through.
And yeah, and that's so true because, you know, when I was in the music industry, my last project I put out, I spent $300,000 on a project and then make pretty much none of my money back, right? Most people would have been like, that's it. I'm throwing the towel in. I'm not doing no more business. But I looked at it when I got a little bit older. I was like, you either win or you learn.
Yeah.
You got some people that have spent $150,000, $200,000 to go to college and then don't even get a job in that field. You took a L. You took a $200,000 L. You know, so most people think that if they don't have or if they don't make money off of a project or whatever, they lost. But if that lesson I learned saves me millions of dollars down the road, it was worth it for me to actually take that, you know, to take that L. That's how I pitch it.
Losses turn to lessons.
Exactly. Let's talk about the Rich or Worry Free. I know about it. tell them about the concept of it, what impact you're trying to have with that, and just, give us some understanding on it.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, we created Rich Worry Free based off of the losses that we took, and was like, look, like we're not chasing riches, like all at this point. And the crazy thing is, we weren't always chasing riches at that point, but it became that because once you build up that snowball, it becomes so big, you basically chasing it at that point. So it turned into something that we weren't even going after. So Rich or Worry Free is based on if you're chasing riches, right? You're only chasing riches. Everything else around you falls apart. So it's like your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids, your health, anything. Anytime you just chase riches and only focus on that, things start falling apart around you. Now you might be the richest person in the room, but that don't mean you satisfied. You don't have purpose. You don't feel fulfilled. It's different. So being worry free, we have 4 pillars. It's 4 F's: faith, family, fitness, and finances. Divided by focus equals a worry free life. So if you divide focus on all 4 of those pillars, you can live a worry free life. And I think what most people get caught up on is like, I need money, I need money, I need money. But it's like, if all of those areas are in alignment in your life, like money will just flow to you. Like if you have faith, if you have your family lined up, you have your priorities straight, you have your fitness on point, all of those things in line, and you have discipline in all those areas, finances will flow to you. It's not that hard. It's like the law of attraction. Like if your faith is right, the law of attraction is there. If you're rocking with your family, like you just putting off good energy. And the brand is really about that. Rich or worry free. Like everybody's like, well, I want to be rich and worry free. All right. Well, if you rich, can you be worry free at the same time? Absolutely. But it's a different kind of wealth. Like I feel like being worry free is wealthy. It doesn't have to mean that you have all this money and your financial like everybody looks at it as like, oh well, my finances are here. All right. Well, how about your family? How about your fitness? You know what I mean? If they're all in alignment, you good. You don't have to have $1 million in the bank to be happy. I can have $1 and still go eat wherever I'm at and enjoy my meal. Don't matter what it has to be. Don't have to be the top of the line.
Exactly. Just look at like when you look at like foreign countries, you'll see somebody in basically like a hut, but they're happy. They're
Yep.
happy. Their family, they outside playing, they running. And then you look at somebody that's in a wealthy community and they're mad about everything.
Yep.
So and I look at that all the time. I remember with my sons, they used to always say, oh, we grew up hard and everything. And I would pull up something from a third world country. I'm like, that's growing up hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's growing up hard. I grew up, my crib was a drawer in a dresser. That's where I
Right.
slept in. Mom would pull
Right.
the dresser drawer out. That's how I slept in. I was like, so for a lot of people, you got it good. And like, I had said this a long time ago. If somebody was to say, hey, Shamus, we're going to pay you $10 million a year, but you got to run this Fortune 500 company. You got 1,000 employees, whatever. Or you could get paid 500 grand a year and travel the world and do whatever you want. I'm taking the 500 grand. I'm out.
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
out. You know what I'm saying? Because
Because money's not
I
everything.
know with that 500 grand, I'm smart enough to put money in different places. And like you said, you don't really need a lot of money to be happy. The key, I think, to happiness is being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it. Help the people you love. I think that matters more than somebody having a boatload of money sitting there and they don't do nothing to the community. Me and my wife today was sitting talking like we was like, you see so many people that have so much money and they don't help nobody.
Nope.
Like God blessed you because he wants you to bless his children. And you're
Nope.
sitting there like, oh, I only got 8 Rolls Royces. I need a 9th one. And you complaining where there's people that don't have a vehicle. You know what I'm saying?
No. I think our definition of being worry free is that exact thing. It's like we want to help people with the brand to create impact. So a lot of people are like, they look at brands and they're like, oh, it don't make no sense. Like it's supposed to be the other way around, but it's like it's causing controversy on purpose. And if you're causing that controversy, it's like it kind of makes people start to think. And I think the direction that we're trying to go with worry free is like, all right, well, if you're worry free, you found fulfillment, you found your purpose. Most people are still trying to find their purpose. Like, what's your lane? Your lane doesn't have to be being a CEO of $1 million company. Like, your lane could be something completely different and scale up to $1 million in other ways, and finding your gifts and talents. And that's like, I teach a class with Apostle Dave at my church. It's called God at Work. And it basically teaches you how to be salt and light in the workplace, right? And God at Work is like most people segment church where it's like, oh, well, you go to church on Sundays. So you roll up to church, you listen to worship music, you set the vibe, right? You set the vibe before you go to church. Well, church is only one day a week. Then you go into the rest of the workplace, and it's like, as soon as you turn right out of the church, it's like you hit that, you in the parking lot right now, you turn out, rap music comes on, you
It's
ain't listening
over.
to the same stuff. It's a whole different world. And
Yep.
and you put it that way because it's like you spend most of your time in the workplace. And how do you become like ministers? How do you become like a church that most people won't see in the workplace? And that's really where Worry Free comes in. Is like, if you're worry free, like, you know your purpose, you know what your fulfillment is. Like, you know, like, God is going to provide everything to you. So that's really where it comes from. It comes from a very, that's the faith pillar. Like, faith is first. If you notice the pillars, finances is last. It starts with faith.
It is.
Faith is everything.
Yep. And
So
you know what they say. They say the two most important days are the day you're born, and then the day you realize why you was born.
yeah,
You figure out like, oh, this is like, I was in church about 3 weeks ago, and I look back, and my church it's a black church. We have white people in there. My mom is white. She's white as snow. My father's black as midnight. Could go to a funeral naked. But I look back, and there was this black family sitting there, and they had a kid that reminded me of me when I was younger. And I swear that I had just a revelation, and I heard God like crystal clear, you got to help these kids. Because I turned around and I told Marilyn, it's been 3 times in church where God came to me. The first time, my son had got in trouble, and we started going to church. We got baptized in church, and I was sitting there, and I swear everything disappeared, and I was standing on like water, and God was right in front of me. He was like, I chose you. Because Marilyn is like tapping me like, yo, and I'm looking around. I'm just like, where, like, that happened to me 2 or 3 times at church. And the other day I seen that little kid, and I heard God say, you got to help these kids. Like, that's what you're here for. There's going to be kids that only you can reach because you're tatted like they are. You come from the Bronx. You was a troubled kid, And I was doing a podcast, and they asked me like, what's something that changed that? And to be honest, I was like, for everybody, I think it's different.
yeah,
For me, it was me growing up how we grew up, but then my sister taking me. That was the pivotal point for me. I seen something like, this is completely different. I could, and I could deal with that. But faith is like I've been up and down, been in the music industry, made 7 figures, lost it, built 7 figures, lost it. And then I came to the conclusion that, I'm 48, that every time I got into something, for 48 years, God always got me out. Every single time. So what's difference? So like, I can have a lot of money and know that I got to lose everything. I'm like, yo, I'll move into an RV, get right back on, because I know I'm going to be able to get back to where I started at. I know how to ride a bike. I could fall off the bike, switch the wheels, but I'm up and I'm running. You know what I'm saying?
Most people don't want to talk about their failures. They always talk about success. But it's like, all right, well, what did you fail up until that point? Because most people only want to be related to their success. But it's like, bro, everybody fails. Don't matter. I fail every day. Like,
everybody. And
you got to learn to be vulnerable.
Exactly. They talk about like people like Elon Musk, look how much money. I said, do you know how much he probably lost to get? You could strike out, like they was talking about Thomas Edison. He did 1,000 inventions, failed at all of them. The 1,001 was the light bulb. Like, all you need is that one. You only need that one. So I try to tell people, like, I think we talked about this book, Outwitting the Devil, right? That book basically says the devil is, if you get hit in the face and you don't want to get up, the devil is on you. But if you, like you said earlier, you get hit, you get up, you get hit, you get up, it's gonna be a point where he's like, this dude Jordan, I'm just gonna leave him alone, because no matter what I hit him with, he's gonna come back, But it's true what you say about people, not knowing that fate. But if you have those things, everything else is gonna go. Let me ask you a question. Before you started in rehabbing, what's one thing you wish you knew?
Man, that's a great question. Because there's so many things that I think about in my head on where it's going, but like, what do I wish I knew? I wish we knew more about the business and had more people to pour into us more, and really understood it better. Because when we first got in, like our first flip, like we didn't make any money on the first flip. We lost money on the first flip. Like, learned on contractors, learned on what things cost. Like we learned the hard way. We learned from the school of hard knocks, literally. Like, people get into their flips and like, oh, I made X amount of dollars. Like, nah, my first flip was a loss. Like, we had to learn, like, all right, well, this cost this. Like, Literally, like, and this isn't even trying to plug it, but our course was built off of the fact that we did the rehab budget course, right? That course was built off of like we learned what those things cost. Now, initially, like we kind of understood things. We knew how to fix things up. We knew how to like understand it, but you don't really understand how to put a full budget together for a $50,000 project completely if you just doing little projects here and there. Like you fix a bathroom, fix a kitchen. You might know how to fix all that stuff, but when it comes to managing a project and managing a $50,000 budget, that could change quickly. So understanding that and understanding like what things cost, how to put a budget together, that's a huge step I feel like most people miss when they go into fix and flipping. I feel like they're like, oh, well, I'll go in there and the GC will help me, this and that. Well, how can you trust the GC? How do you know the GC is on point? Like, if he's saying it's going to cost X, like, how do you know? Like, you don't have to know how to swing the hammer and do all that other stuff, but how do you, from an intellectual standpoint, how do you understand what the cost of it is so you don't get taken advantage of? That's one of the biggest lessons that I think will really help a lot of people is just like understand housing before you get into it, understanding what it costs, understanding how to manage a budget, understanding how to manage contractors. That's a huge lack that most people miss, I think.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about the course. Like I buy tons of courses. I have not found a course that was more detailed as far as like putting projects together. And I don't even think there is rehab courses. Like I don't know any. Like when you send it to me, I'm like, man, this is perfect because I've been in a situation. I remember a friend of mine called me down. She's like, hey, I need you to look at this property. So I'm going in the property and she's like, the girl wants to sell it. And I'm looking, I'm like, damn, almost everything is done here. Like, why would she not finish it? Then I go outside and I look at the siding and it's two different tans. And I was like, I called us, let me guess. They added the square footage and everything and didn't get no permits or nothing. And she was like, bingo. Like the girl was getting ready to get divorced because she dumped like 60K, 80K into the rehab, gave the GC 50 grand up front. The dude did like $10,000 worth of work and was gone. So talk about your course because I've been through it and I'm like, man, this is stuff that I didn't even know. I'm like, this is perfect. You know what I'm saying? So tell a little bit about the course and like what made you come up with that and everything.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing was just most people come to us and the most questions we get asked is like they see you doing fix and flips and they see what we're doing from the rental standpoint and they're like, all right, well, if you're doing all these fix and flips, you should know what it costs to put a rehab budget together. So like, hey, can you come walk this property? I don't really have time. I'm running my own like multiple businesses at this point. Like I can't just leave my family and sacrifice and go walk this property for free for you. We got that question so much and so many people were hitting my DMs. It was like, well, and I talked to other people like, all right, is it worth it to put this course out? And some people were like, well, like, how does it teach you how to make money? Well, it teaches you the knowledge so you can make money. So they're like, well, people aren't going to buy that because it's literally just talking about how to calculate a repair budget. But I'm like, that's one of the biggest things that the industry needs. So it's like most people are like, oh, well, how's it going to make you money? How's it going to do this? I was like, it's going to make impact because people who take the course are now going to understand how to look at a house different. And that was my main thing. It wasn't even about a money thing. It was more or less like, all right, well, how can I save my time from going out and walking all these properties and help make impact with other people so that way I can send it to them. So everybody that asks me the questions all the time, I send them the course for free. But then obviously we got to get recuperated because it's 193 videos, I think, total in the course that breaks it down. And it teaches you when you walk up to a house, what do you look at? What is the cost of it? How to break down cost per square foot, how to break down linear feet versus square feet, how to look at the roof, the soffit, the fascia, the windows, like how to look at those things and calculate what those things will cost. And it's very detailed and it's broken down, but it's broken down into digestible videos. So the 193 videos are like 2 to 5 minutes a piece. And then we also have, I think, 3 videos of a full walkthrough where my brother Jeff will literally walk through the full property without any cuts or anything, 30 to 40 minutes at a time where he just walks through and says, hey, here's what this is going to cost. And he shows you how to implement everything that we just taught you in the course. So you can learn how to put a renovation budget course together literally inside of under 7 hours. So an hour a day for a week, and you now know how to put a renovation budget.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. I was like, this is genius. I'm like, that it's accurate and everything. And a lot of people don't, like you said, especially new investors, they get into the business, they buy a property, they overpay for it. And they're like, oh, this is gonna, you know how many emails I get where they're like, yo, the rehab is $20,000. I get there, it's $100,000 rehab. Like a guy sent me a property not too long ago and he's like, yeah, it's a $20,000 rehab. I get there, literally everything has to do, everything, sheetrock, wiring, electrical. So I asked him, and then he was talking about, the comps are 350, 400. And he was like, I asked him, I said, where did you see a comp for 350 or 400? He's like, man, I could throw a rock at one. I'm like, well, how far can you throw? I was like, because I didn't find none within like 2 miles. I don't know how far you could throw, but I can't go 2 miles. But the numbers are so off. And then for wholesalers, what they don't understand is that when you send a cash buyer a property and you tell them the rehab is 10,000 and it's 70,000, they're not going to open your emails no more. They're going to block you and they're not going to answer your calls. So,
you get discredited.
If I would just advise wholesalers to just purchase the course just so you can accurately put together numbers for your cash buyers so you do not burn your relationships out.
It actually helps not only make you money, but save you money in regards to when you can actually calculate your repair costs when you go to sell a property. And most people could differ because they're like, oh, well, if you do it virtually, you don't need to. But it's like, but if you're actually in the industry, you want to become the expert because now talking to buyers, you're like, all right, well, this is what it's going to cost. Well, they're like, oh, well, your numbers are off. It's not going to cost 30 grand. It's going to cost 80. But it's like, well, here's why it costs 30 grand. Here's why your numbers should be right. Because most of the time, how you going to know the contractor or the cash buyer is not taking advantage of you saying, oh, well, it's going to cost 50, but ultimately it's only going to cost them 30. How do you know? Like what? Like knowledge is power. Knowledge literally is profit at the end of the day. Knowledge is how you know whether or not you're being taken advantage of or not. And that's where it came from. And agents, like literally I've talked to brokerages, like they want real estate agents to take the course now. So like we talk to different brokerages that are like, hey, look, like I'm literally like anybody who comes in that take their real estate license, they take the course off the rip just so they can understand the house. You'd be like real estate agents don't even understand the house, don't even understand the makeup of it. They get licensed to teach you how to sell it. But when it comes to actually pricing stuff or understanding the cost of what a house actually costs to put together, they have no idea.
None.
I would say a vast majority of them. There is a select few that do know, but for the most part, every conversation I've had is like they call me to walk the property for their client to figure out what it costs to put it back together.
Yeah,
so
that's absolutely true. You talk to real estate agents like, oh yeah, it's gonna just need this. I'm like, it needs kitchens and bathrooms. That's not $10,000. Like a kitchen can be 15 to 20K by itself. You know what I'm saying? And that's a low end kitchen. You get into a high end kitchen, you may be talking 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 grand.
Absolutely.
So I think that to me, like educating yourself on the process, whether it's rehabbing, fixing and flipping or whatever, I think that's the base that everybody should start with. Like, so when you're in conversations with people, you actually know what you do. Because you know how much of an idiot you look like? You're like, yeah, I renovated this whole property. It was 2,000 square feet, kitchen and everything. I did it for 12 grand. What? Where?
Right.
Like, where did you do that at? Like, can I get the contractor's name? Exactly.
It sounds good, but it's not
good.
real.
Exactly. So talk a little bit about like the wholesaling, because I know you do the fix and flips. Well, first of all, how many projects do you usually like do per year? How many do you have going on, like rentals and everything and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So each year is different, right? But we have goals that we want to hit. So our main goal that we want to hit by the end of this year is we want to be at 75 rental doors that we own.
Okay.
So that's a mission that we're on. So in regards to fix and flips, I really transitioned because to be honest with you, I was running a wholesaling business and I'm literally doing very good numbers on the wholesaling business, but I'm like, we're wholesaling equity away to other people, like every single time.
Yeah.
And all these people brag about, I'm a wholesaler, I run $1 million wholesaling company, like all this other stuff, which is great because you have cash to influx into the business. In my mind, for me personally, again, my capacity, because I know people that are crushing wholesaling and doing it virtually and all that other stuff, which is fine. But for me personally, I was like, I'm not going to pass equity on for all the marketing dollars I'm spending. I'm going to make impact in my area. So I'm going to find the houses in my area. I'm going to build up a rental portfolio in my area. I'm going to do fix and flips in those areas. So our fix and flips actually are setting the comps for our BRRRR strategy. So when we set a comp in an area, now we can refi that out based off of that specific comp. So like if we do a property in Upper Ninth Ward and we set the comp at 200, now the other comp was 170, but because we balled it out and we did it so nice, we now have a comp for 200. So before we even start to it even goes to closed, we know the appraisal hit. I can then market like 3 blocks around that specific area. So we can now hit that area for either holds or flips, either way. But now I control the market. So I've learned how to control the market. So from a number standpoint, we were doing anywhere between 40 and 50 properties a year. either
Which
way.
is a
And then
lot.
we scaled back a little bit. Yeah, we scaled back a little bit, and we were like, all right, well, instead of doing it at that scale, how do we build our rental portfolio at the same time, do flips, give back to the community, and then also be able to kind of generate income for ourselves, but also
Hmm.
have that working capital to work with on a monthly basis. Because and you got Amazon automation, you got crypto, you got all these other things you can make money on. But what I was good at was real estate. So we're like, if we
Hmm.
could do fix and flips, turn it into the burr, let's pass it into, now we have monthly income coming in. There's cash flow we have coming in every single month without even have to think about it. So there's other things that you jump into, but from for the most part, that's kind of like our whole setup is now passing the doors right into our rental management. Rental management manages them, and then that income now helps us scale other companies. It helps pay payroll. Like, it keeps it moving. And then the wholesaling company literally injects deals into us anytime we want deals. Anytime we want deals, we can just turn marketing on. Be like, yo, we need a deal. All right, cool.
Nice.
We found two.
Nice. What's some advice you would give to somebody new getting into, like, let's say they want to get into real estate? What's some advice would you tell them to start off with? Wholesaling, or, what type of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think each person is different, honestly, bro. It's like some people can wholesale and people can understand it, but wholesaling is hard. Wholesaling is, I mean, you talking to motivated sellers, and again, like the statement I always make is like, you're not really talking to motivated sellers. You're talking to sellers that aren't motivated, and it's your job to motivate them and close them to become a deal. And most people are like, oh, well, go find motivated sellers. Now, there is deals that are like that. We call them the unicorn deals, right? You
Uh-huh.
call them, they're on a pre-foreclosure list, and they're like, oh, well, I need to sell. You go sign a contract, and boom, you're done. There is deals like that. But the odds of getting that deal is not for everyone, because I've
Not at all.
worked with people that haven't even got a deal in 3 years, and they keep going off that same thing that I'm going to hit the pre-foreclosures, I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to get a deal. But then it's like they're not built for it. So when you understand that, it's like, all right, what is your bandwidth set up for, and what is your capacity? So what you can handle. Can you handle talking to people every day? If you can't, maybe you hire it out, or maybe just get into rentals. Like, I know, for instance, a couple people that I mentored, I got them into the FHA program, where it's like
Hmm.
they were able to get multifamilies. So instead of jumping right into wholesaling, you could get a multifamily, 4 units, live in one of the units, rent the other three, and now you're cash flowing $1,000 a month off of that specific unit. Live in one, rent the other three. You're living for free and you're cash flowing. That's one way to get in. And that's FHA, literally zero money down. One of the guys I mentored got freaking $600 back at the table for living in his own unit. And everybody's like, well, you need X, you need this. You just need to be educated.
Yep.
You can use VA loans, you can use whatever. That's just for specific rentals. Wholesaling is good to get into if you have the bandwidth to do it. If you
Hmm.
don't, to get into real estate, learn to leverage different programs that they have from a lending perspective, FHA, VA, what the conventional loan projects look like. What is your head set up to handle? And then what do you go to from there? Because I think we always get put in a box like, you want to go get into real estate, just go do wholesaling. But most people might not have the time or the bandwidth to deal with it. Dealing with sellers is
Bro,
bro.
bro, trust me. Trust me. I was just having that conversation with wifey. I'm like, man, so my thing is, what I'm trying to do now, since I relaunched Magneto Homes, is my goal is 50 dials a day at a bare minimum and 10 to 15 conversations. I try to do that every day. And it's hard when I'm still trying to, you know, build the CRM out and the VAs, and then I got to go somewhere with wifey and stuff like that.
Nope.
I tell people wholesaling is sales and marketing. That's it.
No.
You got to know how to generate leads. And then you got to be able, like you said, to hold those conversations and make it a win-win situation. Now, with the wholesaling, most wholesalers are moving to sell to hedge funds,
Nope.
because hedge funds are buying at a higher, at 90 cents on a dollar, 95 cents on a dollar.
Let's talk about that. I want to talk
Okay.
about that. Keep going with your point, but let's talk about that.
So like, I have these conversations with wholesalers, and I tell them the old traditional way of you having, if a house is 300,000, for it to be a good wholesale deal for a fix and flip, you're going to have to offer that homeowner 50 cents on the dollar. And you're going to get cursed out. You're going to get hung up on. Like, I
No.
made a joke the other day when Zillow mentioned that they wasn't going to buy no more. I said I was going to call all the homeowners that told me Zillow said they would pay this for it. I'm like, hey,
Right.
you don't got it right now. You know what I'm saying? But they don't see that. I'm like, the hedge funds are buying at 90 cents on a dollar. So if you got a $300,000 property, you could probably get it to the hedge fund for
270.
270 and make a 10 or 20K spread. And you're getting the homeowner an additional $100,000 over what, because I get the phone, I pick the phone up and I talk to them. Are you gonna try to steal my house? They're like, whoa,
Right.
whoa. That's not.
Yeah.
I'm not calling to steal your house. I'm just trying to be fair. But let's talk about hedge funds. Go ahead.
Man, my thing with hedge funds is I see so many people doing it, and there's no fault of anybody, but this is just my personal perspective. I don't even want to get butthurt if they're selling the hedge funds. It is what it is. I think the biggest thing with everything going on in the world right now is hedge funds want to own specific areas, right? Mm-hmm. My problem is we're pushing ownership, right? We want ownership. We want our communities to own. We want to be able to own in these areas. But like if a major corporation is buying in that area and buying out a community, you're not going to own anything. True. And in my opinion, we're literally enabling, this is just my opinion, but we're enabling these large companies to come in and take our community away from us to make a quick bag. So it's like, all right, again, concept is like, are you trying to be rich or are you trying to be worry free? Well, let me make a quick bag real quick on this and then I'll come back to you. But it's like, in my mind, I just can't wrap my head around it. Now I try to do it and it's just like, I just can't. I'm like, bro, we're literally enabling BlackRock capital that like messes with the music industry. All these hedge funds own all these, like, remember Snoop Dogg just bought Death Row because he's like, he's sick of seeing the same thing. Like, how are you going to control our community just because you got all this money? I think that is where my mind is blocked off at, is like, I see people selling the hedge funds and doing this stuff and it's a quick bag, but I'm not here for the bag. I'm here for the impact. Like, I'm not going to go 100%. I could go I guarantee you with our marketing tactics and what we do, I could drop into any market, find a hedge fund, and then funnel $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to them easily and make that easy. But in my mind, is that the best source of my energy? And what am I enabling by doing that? I'm just personally not about it in my mind. I see it and people can make money, but it is what it is.
You see, because, and I agree. So for new people getting into it, I understand that in the beginning, you got to make money.
Right.
So you may toss a couple of deals to a hedge fund or whatever like that. But then for you to consistently, that's all that you do. You're not, like you said, you're not helping the community at all. Like, we could talk all the day. So you know I was in the music industry.
Yeah.
In the early 90s, I was trying to do black distribution, raise the royalty rate, and everything. Everybody thought I was crazy. I had the lawyers telling me, oh, you're going to mess the industry up. And I'm like, yeah, but I was just having this conversation. I told my wife, because I'm working on an incubator program. We talked about this last weekend.
Yep.
You could come out, you're an artist. I'll invest $1 million into your project. I take my $1 million back. We split the profit 50-50. The second album has to be on your label, where you now own your royalties, you now own your masters. And then what happens is you wind up, like, I think that the music industry should have a union, just like every other industry. Like, you got these artists that made billions of dollars for artists. And I'm not going to say no names, but I was in the music industry and I was lending money to people to pay their rent that was top 10 on Billboard. I'm like, how? Like, you know what I'm saying? Your record is number 5. Like, how are you not making money? But that
perception is not reality, right?
Exactly. You know, I'm sitting there with Bert Padell. You hear Biggie say I stashed more gas than Bert Padell. And a dude next to me, I don't want to say no names, he's like, yo, they just repoed my Range Rover. And you're trying to talk to me about finance and working my money. I'm good. But that goes back to you, to what you said about ownership.
Yeah.
Like, we got the same issues in the NBA. We got the same. We used to talk about the NBA today. I'm like, the NBA used to be the ABA, which was stole from them.
Yeah.
And they just took it to another level.
I think the problem is just from a money standpoint, it just becomes a money grab. And everybody's like, well, I can make this and I can put my family on. Now it becomes, all right, let me put my family on, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to help. But it's like, it don't work like that. It never has. I've never seen it work that way. Now, there's select few people that I've seen do it, but like, I think there's a select few people around us like that know, like, yo, we move different. Like, I move way different than what these other cats is doing. And I'm not on board with doing certain things and enabling like these large corporations to come into my center and like and do that. Like I'd rather buy and hold and keep them from buying, at least in my city, because there's no hedge funds buying in my city like that.
Okay. You know, in
I
Atlanta,
wouldn't
they're
even
all
want them
here.
to.
They're
I wouldn't
all in
want them to.
Atlanta. All of
You
them are
know?
in Atlanta, you know.
And they want to buy Atlanta up because Atlanta's hot. So it's like, all right, well, if we can buy Atlanta up and we can own it, we can enforce our rules on Atlanta because now we own it. We own Atlanta. But now people gonna leave Atlanta once they start realizing what's going on, because in the next, they're not gonna see it right now, but I bet they're gonna feel it in 5 years.
Yeah, 5 or 10 years, you're gonna see that everything. You're gonna go into the communities, they're completely different. You get pushed out, gentrification comes in, you get pushed out, that nobody could afford. We was talking about that. I messed up my biggest mistake that I made in real estate. In 1999, when I went to move to Atlanta, a buddy of mine had a brownstone in Harlem and only wanted 100 grand for it. I'm like, man, that's New Jack City. I don't want to live there. That same brownstone is like $2.5 million right now. And if you see, Jim Jones was upset because a big hedge fund came in and bought a big area of Harlem for like 68 million.
Yeah.
But then let's talk about that. Now, in a situation like that, Jim Jones was upset because they came in and paid 68 million, got all these brownstones. But then I say that as business owners, whether it's musicians, athletes, we wait to say something after the move is made.
Right.
Like why couldn't you get 68 NFL players or NBA players to put $1 million each and purchase that so we could keep it?
Right.
Same thing in the music industry. Like I look at the top people in there, I'm like, there's still no black distribution? Like, what are we waiting for? Like, what are we waiting for? For me, I think I was too far ahead of my time. When I was talking to dudes, they was like, man, I'm just trying to get a record deal. I'm like, yeah, but that record deal, once you spend that advance, you're done, you know? So it's completely, you know, that's true what you said is about, and it made me think and look different now, because I'm like, damn, I'm not giving them no more damn houses to no more damn hedge funds, you know what I'm saying? Because my thing is, like even here in Atlanta, I got the Help Foundation. We go down on Sundays and we feed the homeless. We got an entrepreneur program for kids. My thing that I want to do in Atlanta is I want to try to either build or find 1 or 2 old hotels, renovate them, and put veterans in there and put homeless people in there with programs to support them.
Yeah.
With all the money in Atlanta, we go down there, Joe, I'm talking about there's 200-300 people. I'm like, bro, you know how much we are the new Hollywood. We're the mecca of music, and you guys, everybody can't put their money together to get these 300 people off the street, you know? So like, but
same thing. We was just in San Diego. It's the same way. Homeless people everywhere because they can't afford to live. You got a ranch house, 2,000 square foot, $2.2 million, basic house.
Bro, I would get up at 5:15 because I stayed at the Hard Rock Cafe, and I would run. So many homeless people.
Every morning.
I'm like, you know, that's crazy. But yeah, that just shifted. Like, but
now what's crazy is here's what I want to tap on that is, I think from a community standpoint, it's like it's always me, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna make it out, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna change it. But then you realize it's more than just you. It's a group effort. I think what anybody has to realize is to get successful in any industry, you got to have a team. I got a whole team behind me, bro. Like I got my 2 brothers, my sister, my dad. Like I got a whole team of people. I work with my family every day, which is a huge blessing. But you got to learn what your roles are. And most people don't understand that. It's like, look, if I learn my role and I know what is going on around me, how can we collaborate as a community together to make impact? Most people are like, no, I want it myself. It's like a greed mentality. I want it myself. I want a record label deal. I want to do this. I want to do that just to get the money for myself so I can control it. But it's like, bro, money's a tool. Like the way that my family looks at money is like, yo, money's not like, it's not going to change us. It doesn't make or break us. I've seen $1 million. I've seen 10. Like I've seen money in my account. I've seen it go and I've seen it come. Either way, at the end of the day, once you realize it, it's like, I don't need to enable other people doing stuff if it goes against our morals. And I think, just like you said, NBA, NFL, rappers, they see stuff happening like that in Atlanta. How does somebody in that industry collaborate and pull everybody together and is not worried about money and say, how do we collaborate and make impact in our community other than just being like, hey, let's go let's go put a bunch of nightclubs out here and like fuel this versus it's like, yo, let's put some content studios. Let's put some like, how do we build the community instead of creating a culture that's going to be different than what we saying we going against anyway? Because that's all that these hedge funds are going to come in and do anyway. It's like they want to tear you down. So that's where I come from in that.
And it's true because I'm a firm believer in like, you're not going to recreate the system that they got. You know what I mean? You're going to have to design a totally different system that makes people look at it like, oh, you still doing that? Like nobody does that anymore because the entire system, the banking system, everything was built to keep, I mean, just look at it. They designed the entire system. And what you got, 87% of the people live paycheck to paycheck and don't have more than $1,000. That's because we're following your system.
And here's what's crazy. Was most people think as we talk about this is like, oh, well, they this or they that. And it's like, in regards to politics, this is not even a political conversation. This is like a real life, like, hey, how do we make a change? I don't care if you Democrat, Republican, whatever you may be, whatever thing you hang your hat on, that is irrelevant to make an impact to a community. Because once you hang your hat on one of those sides, 3 of those sides, 4 of those sides, whatever it may be, it's like, all right, I'm standing with this side. That's it. Yo, we got to stand with the people. Because at the end of the day, the people behind the scenes that are running the stuff, that are running the hedge funds, running all this other stuff, they don't care about us because they live a completely different life.
At all.
Completely different life. They don't care about nobody around them.
Nope. They're on an island. I used to say that about the music execs. I'm like, these dudes are on an island somewhere, don't even speak English, and they're getting all of our money. They're getting, and I used to tell people, if you made $1 million on the record label made 20 million.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, since we're talking about that, where do you see your legacy in 10 to 20 years?
Man, my legacy in 10 to 20 years is I'm a huge advocate for impact, right? And I think at this point, the way that I live, I give all glory to God and everything that I do and everything He's done through me so far, right? I think the biggest thing that I see is how much impact can I make around people and show them like how I live and what I'm doing that's so much different than what everybody else is doing, and how can we bring more people to the kingdom? At this point, it's not even about money and building businesses and like, oh, I own X amount of this. Like, all that's irrelevant. I don't care if I have 20 projects going on. Like, I could give a dang about the 20 projects. What about all the souls and the people that we're around that literally are lost and roaming around in different areas of our cities and trying to figure stuff out? Like, how do we really make impact in that? And some people are going to say it's a superficial answer, but if you actually really know me and what we do, it's like, bro, all we're worried about is impact at this point. Like, money's going to come. Because literally, as soon as you start making impact, bro, you already know, you turn the light bulb on or you turn the faucet on, bro, money will flow to you so easily like this. I'm not worried about the money. I'm more worried about, like you said, my legacy in 10 to 20 years is how many people was I able to help find their purpose, their vision, and fulfillment through biblical principles, which is one of the reasons why, small plug, I teach God at Work at my church with Apostle Dave. And he teaches basically the same principles on you apply those biblical principles to your life and watch how successful your life becomes just off of those principles. It's like a goat versus sheep nation, right? And goats eat everything. They don't care about anybody else, but the sheep have a different type of mentality. And I know there's always like the things like I love the one dude, Sean Whalen, he got lions, not sheep, right? Which is dope. Like, right, you got lions that you need to have, but at the same time, the goat nation was like, you got all these goats in the nation that all are me. Don't worry about nobody else. And that's literally the mentality is we're eating ourselves alive from the inside out from a community standpoint because we're not worried about nobody.
It's funny. The book I'm reading right now is called The Business Secrets of the Bible. A rabbi wrote it. And we was having this conversation, you know, growing up, you hear money is the root to all evil and stuff like that. That's actually not true. The love of money. The love of money, exactly. Yeah. Because if that was true, why did God bless his disciples so much that they were able to bless more people? You know what I'm saying? And when you start to talk about that, like, you know, that's a whole nother podcast right there because we could talk about that stuff. But money's
just real quick. Money's not evil. You can be rich or you can be wealthy. It's all about the other pillars, which actually is dope. I love. I've been putting Rich or Worry Free together for almost a year. So if you remember, like, I wear the gear, you can't even push it out. But I love seeing other entrepreneurs doing the same thing. Ryan Pineda actually launched The Wealthy Way. And I was like, yo, that is dope. I'm glad other entrepreneurs are doing something other than just pushing money. And he's one of the only ones that I've seen that actually put a program out there like that that's very similar to what I'm creating. Like,
Mm-hmm.
love his concept, love seeing that. I want to see more people doing the same thing he's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, for
yo, how do
sure.
we make impact in our life, our everyday life that most people don't talk about? Your relationship with your spouse, your kids,
Mm-hmm.
your health, your fitness, and lastly, your finances. Like, how do you capture all of those
All of it.
areas?
Yeah, all of
We,
it.
we
I think that comes with time and life experiences, and because when you're younger, you start out, you're only chasing money, and then you get into it, then you see your community around you. And like for me, my whole thing is in my family is to break the generational curse, and then to teach my kids how to do it, teach my god kids how to do it, to teach my grandkids how to do it, and to pay that forward. Because when I look back, I say, I'm the only one in my family that is even thinking on that mindset. Nobody
no,
else is talking about that. It was about 2 years ago when my sister called me and she was just like, I'm sorry. I'm like, for what? She's like, for telling you that you should have got a real job and that your business wasn't gonna work. She was like, I'm old now and I can't even pay my bill. So it's absolutely true.
no.
So for everybody, uh, tell everybody first. I want to talk about when will you have the rich and worry free gear? I know when the gear is coming. Tell a little bit
Yeah.
about your event. I know it's coming up on the 18th. This podcast is going to probably be out after it, but I know you're going to host more events. So just tell people a little bit about that, like where they can find you, your social media plugs, the rehab course, which I recommend to anybody that wants to wholesale, whether you want to rehab or not. You need to buy this course so you can understand how to talk to your cash buyer. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on Instagram, it's easy, just at Jordan Morgan. I think the rehab course is just rehabbudgets.com. I mean, we've already hit on the rehab course. I mean, if you want to learn how to put a renovation budget together, what the costs are, like all that stuff really simply, it's really not that expensive. You can grab it and literally send it to your team. You can have it, you can give it, you could be a owner of a company and know how to do it. But if you could pass
mm-hmm.
that to your team and have all 5 employees take it and understand it, that's a very valuable class right there. Richard Worry Free, shout out to Shamus. I mean, you helping me out a lot, just
Got you.
pulling the gear together because I've been bumping my head against the wall trying to figure out how to get good quality gear other than what most people produce. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not putting my name on something that's not quality. So we will have gear at the event, but then I'll probably have the website done and launched. We're trying to have it launched probably by the end of like March. Middle to end of March is kind of where it'll be. So if people are trying to get a hold of Richard Worry Free, it's just richardworryfree.com. And we'll have the store on there, a little blog on there about different stories we got going on. And I mean, we're on the same boat, like trying to push the content out there so people can
Mm-hmm.
see like a different lifestyle than what most people are pushing. Um,
Exactly.
I think other than that, everything else is the event coming up is on the 18th, but it's obviously going to be after this. So most of the events that we push on are it's a speed networking event. So you go to a real live event and you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna hear all these speakers speak, but you don't get a chance to talk to the speakers because they're always like blocked off in the green room or they're behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been behind the scenes and I know like that's most of the time where the action's at. So it's like, all right, that's where you talk about how do you be
Mm-hmm.
in proximity with those people. And my goal was to bring a bunch of industry leaders into the events in our area and be able to allow people the proximity to get in contact with them, talk to them. Hey, look, here's what I got going on. How can you help me? So we do speed networking rounds. So if there's 10 speakers, there's 10 rounds of 10 minutes, right? So literally right there, you're like, all right, well, I got 10 minutes to get around each one of these speakers and drop a question or listen to what other people are saying. And now you're in
Mm-hmm.
proximity to industry leaders. And that was my goal because it's like most people don't even get the experience to be around these people. Most people don't get the
Mm-hmm.
experience to even be in proximity of a group of 10, 15, 20 people at a time. Just like, hey, what do you have to say? How do I learn from you? And one nugget, if you're really smart,
That's all
one
it
nugget from
takes.
an event like that will
Mm-hmm.
change your motivation, change your direction that you're going with your business. That's all you need is that one thing. And
Mm-hmm.
all we're focused on is if we could change that one life and point that one life in the one direction, it don't matter if 10 people come to the event. That's our main goal is how do we push people to get around proximity is power, right? So how do
Mm-hmm.
you get in proximity of the power players around you and how can they point you in the right direction? So that we'll probably have another event. I want to say probably like April, May timeframe once it starts getting
I'm
nice
gonna be
outside
on
again.
that one right there. I'm gonna get up there to that one right there. But
Yeah.
my brother Jordan, like I said, I appreciate you. From day one, we've been cool, you know what I'm saying? And it's funny because we even had these conversations. It's like you meet certain people in the industry and you just know who you are in alignment with, and you know who you have to stay out of the alignment with. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
I'm not
Yep.
messing with him. You've been family for day one. I wish nothing but, success for you. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. You're my second guest, so the podcast, I'm going to be pushing it. I'm going to push it hard. So you're going to see IG ads and YouTube ads and everything. And I just want to thank you for coming on, taking the time out, because I know you're a busy man, but I appreciate you. Many blessings, and you're my brother, bro.
Likewise, bro. Appreciate you for having me on, man. Blessings.
Yes, sir. All right, peace.